Good morning, everyone. Well, legitimately, this is morning. You're seeing a sky that's just starting to lighten up. So it is early. That's okay. I got to go in to town to drive my son to his donation center. So I have my first cup of coffee with you. We'll see if it makes the mouth work. All right. I guess last night was comedy night. I don't know if you saw the debate. Was it a debate or a debacle? I suppose it depends on who you claim to be. The Democratic media, they're all, "Oh my God, we didn't know he was so bad. We can't possibly let him run against Trump." These guys live in Washington, D.C. They see him every day for something. For them to say they didn't know he was this bad is they're either totally incompetent or they're lying. And they're good at lying, so I will go with that. There's nothing wrong with getting old and having senile moments. It's part of growing up. My mom went through dementia, and I was with her the last 7 years of her life, and I saw it degrade fast. I understand it, so I'm not criticizing Biden for that. But the shell game, you ever see these guys with the cups and the balls and they're moving stuff around? If you watch the cups, you will never see that they manipulate the ball. Congress years ago voted term limits on the president, saying that nobody should be in office that long. You just, you'll get corrupt, you won't be able to make good decisions. We have to limit the president. Yet Congress has no term limits. These guys need to put term limits on themselves, but they won't. So for them to be surprised, it makes the Democrats look like, on the surface, that they're incompetent, they don't know what they're doing, they don't have a plan, that they're weak. And it's just the opposite. Congress makes the rules. They make the laws. If the president does something through executive order that they don't like, they can reverse it. Have you seen any of that? He's reading off a teleprompter when he can see it. Everything that they're doing is orchestrated. They're following a plan. Now, I can't tell you what the planned direction is because there's a number of evil choices that they could make. They're not worried about the next election. What do we got here? July, August, September, October, November. 5 months till the election. They don't have an apparent candidate. They're not going to promote the VP up. She wasn't capable of being VP, experienced in with her lack of experience. Both of them are simply placeholders that would be willing to follow orders, and that's what they've done. Biden, through 50 years, has proven that he can follow orders of the party. Now, this is not your Democratic Party of your fathers. I remember years ago when Reagan was president, and I'm from California, back when it was not as bad as it is now. I lived there. It wasn't that bad. I would not have lived there under the current state that it's in. That's why we left. But I was there when Reagan was governor, And when he went in to be president, he has what it takes to represent us. He had. And that is a good stage presence. Because of his acting and his ability to talk, telling jokes while he's up on the pulpit giving a speech. Because of that, he was able to get his message across. When he was president, it was a Democratic-controlled Congress, and yet he still got everything done because he took it to the American people. This was back when the media wasn't all lopsided. We had political groups or media groups like 60 Minutes who would expose a corrupt politician. Now they hide them. The media wasn't corrupt then. You were going to get, if you got a, 2 papers out of a major city, there'd be a left and a right version of the paper, and you would read them both, and you would put the 2 together and figure out what was going on. Now everything is so far off that you couldn't figure it out if you tried. And the Democrats of that time were pro-American. They just had a different way of doing things. It didn't always agree with the right, but they weren't that far off. Reagan would have lunch every week with Tip O'Neill, the Speaker of the House, a Democrat, and they would discuss things politely. We never saw them get into fisticuffs at a lunch, but they would get together and talk about things because they weren't that far off. It was just the method to get there. Now they're so far off. This isn't Democrat Party. This is a Communist Party. And even from Communist point of view, it is a full socialist point of view. The harlot is pushing her agenda on the world, and the United States is the biggest prize that she's going to be able to put in her quiver. A Christian nation in its founding, regardless of what the left would tell you. They debated how to set this government up. The separation of church and state argument that they throw at you all the time as if it were law is not. It was in a letter from Madison to Jefferson discussing how are we going to draft the Constitution and maintain this separation, because they didn't want what they had in England. They didn't want the Church of England, who was in bed with the government, making the rules. They didn't want that because the religion was corrupt, the government was corrupt, and you put them together and you got massive corruption. Now, we have many denominations in this country, so they'd have to pick one to bring in and corrupt, but it wouldn't take long. But the separation of church and state is not a document that's anywhere in law. We have freedom, which we're losing, and it will be gone shortly. Freedom of expression, freedom of religion, not from, of. Totally different things, different ways of looking at things. So, anyhow, what can we draw from last night? Well, the first thing we can draw is that the Democrats are actors. I don't know when we're going to get an Academy Award for being a politician, but they're actors. They're playing a part. This is all planned out. Like I said, we don't know which direction they're going to go. There's a number of options that they've got. They're going to try to do it in the most diabolical way, deceitful way, they can basically do what they did the last time. Nobody expected anyone to steal an election, but they did, because nobody expected it. They got away with it. They won't get away with it again. The states that they were able to pull that 2 o'clock in the morning ballots and buckets of ballots, they won't be able to pull that again. Because states like Georgia that got taken have put rules in place, you can't do that. So what else have they got planned? Well, they could simply eliminate Trump, and they're trying legally. Well, they're trying illegally if you count the New York conviction. Would they use violence? I wouldn't put anything past these evil people. Who up there has a demon running them? I don't know. You can't tell. But they're working for the same God, if you will, Satan. The harlot's doing Satan's bidding. And they're all working together for one thing. One world government where there's going to be one body that says, this is what you're going to do and this is what you're not going to do. And if you do something we don't want you to do, we're going to take away your rights. Your rights are no longer inalienable. They are on temporary loan. If you don't bow down to the beast, you won't get the mark. And if you don't have the mark, you can't buy and sell. You will starve to death. And we don't care. Because we're going to set the rules, and you either do what we tell you or die. It's very simple. They don't have a complicated agenda. All that's complicated is how they're going to do it. How do you take over a country that is set up to oppose everything that they stand for? You do it piece by piece. You start replacing the top officials, and then you start replacing the lower officials, and when you've got people all the way down through the government, then you can take over. Now, Bolivia just tried to have a coup where the military was going to take over, and they failed. The government was too strong for them, and there were enough loyal military that prevented it. I don't think you could take it over now in the United States. I'm not calling for anything violent. I'm not calling for anything opposing this. I'm not calling for a civil war. I'm just giving you what I see as the facts of what's out there. And biblically, this all matches the timeline. We know that the United States, at least by name, is not referenced in the Bible. We also know that Israel, at least in the Magog War, has no allies. The United States, up until this administration, has been a pure ally of Israel. Now, this administration is working for the harlot, and the harlot wants to eliminate people. What better way throughout history to eliminate people than by war? So they're pushing everybody's buttons. Except the nuke button. They haven't pushed the nuke button yet, but they may. Israel, I think I've already said before, I think will have to push the nuke button because they're going to get beat by attrition. We've been the supplier, their primary supplier of bullets and general military equipment, and we're refusing now as a country to give it to them. Now they're denying that, but they're lying like they normally lie, and the media is not going to help anymore. So they're going to run out of bullets. They're going to run out of missiles for their, if you got an Iron Dome system, if you don't have missiles in those launchers, they're useless. They're going to run out soon. There's enough missiles in the surrounding countries that they couldn't keep up with it. Now they just, recently launched, 280 missiles at them, different types. A number of countries came together and shot them all down, all but a couple. But they're not going to have that the next time. That's what the devil's counting on. So they will have to use a nuke, unfortunately. Now, what happens in Elam, I don't know. That's where their nuclear facilities are, Iran's. So they could just have a natural disaster. But it could be caused by traditional bombs. When they did the missile launches, Israel flew in and got past their defenses to say, look, you do this again, and we're going to come in and take this area out. Well, they're threatening to do it again because they don't think anybody can stop them. When it gets right down to it, for the Magog War anyway, nobody will stop them but God. As long as you've got God on your side, you don't have to worry about losing. But we're not really sure if the Ezekiel War is in the beginning or the end. Yeah, it's covered, and it seems like it could be in the beginning, but it sounds like they're all going to get fairly defeated. And then there's another one, apparently at the end, if there's two, where they rebound back. I don't know. We're not really sure. But there's a war going on now. And there's a war in Ukraine going on, continuing to go on. And if you didn't just see the news, North Korea signed an agreement with Russia to defend each other. And they're getting ready to send North Korean troops to Ukraine. So we will be helping destroy North Korean troops as well as Russian troops by continuing to send arms and money. And Russia's, of course, quite aware of that. And they're going to do everything they can to stop that. And they're threatening the United States right now. And they've been pushing, they've been flexing their muscles. I've talked about this in the past. Okay, so we got off topic a little bit, but what is this country going to do? How are they going to... They don't seem to be worried that they're going to lose the election. They have a significant plan in place. What is it? We don't know, which tends to lead in the direction of it's not a popular plan by the world standard. They're going to pull something diabolically. If they had a plan, if they had somebody out there, if they were going to bring, Michelle Obama or Obama's brother or second cousin on his wife's side, whoever they bring in to replace Biden, you can't beat Trump. He's too far in advance right now. So they're not worried about that. Yeah, they're going to keep shuffling the cups around in this little shell game so you can keep distracted. So you won't know what the guy's doing behind the curtain. I've already given you other scenarios in the past, and I can regurgitate them now if you want. I mean, they could have all these illegals coming across the border, some of which are legitimate workers coming across, and I welcome you. If you're from Mexico and you come here to work to make money for your family, welcome. It's the other million that I don't like, that came across here as political escapees who want to come here to destroy America. If you come here to destroy America, you've never been welcome. And you're going to destroy America. You will succeed. Because that's in the devil's plan. And he will help you. We can't stop it. The Bible tells us we can't stop it. So, are they going to do another 9/11 attack? Possibly. If that happens, just before the election, they can put the election on hold. You can't have an election during wartime. You can have martial law, and if you do that, you can suspend the election until after the war is over. The war will never be over, because we will go into an actual war in this country, fighting the people that are already here, who have got all the ammunition that they need. Remember all the millions of rounds that the IRS bought? You don't think that we're going to arm these desk jockeys sitting behind their computers auditing you? You're not going to give them a gun and send them out in the streets. No, of course not. They're going to give that ammunition to the terrorists that just came across the border illegally. Here, go raise havoc. Every public event, start shooting people. Pretty soon we're all going to stay, shut-ins. We're all going to stay home and not go out because we're going to be afraid. That's their plan. Now, are we getting there immediately? Or is this a year or two down the line? I don't know. But one way or the other, this country is going to be completely shut down. It's why we've got to get out of here. We could stop it in an instant by simply saying, God, please stop this. And God always tries to please His people. His people are still the Jews, and we're adopted. Does that mean we got to go back to the Old Testament? No, because they don't need to go back to the Old Testament. Them building a temple is not going to help them advance their religious beliefs. But it will unite them. It will unite them around what they believe to be the Messiah. When they find out they're wrong, they will still be united. And that will help. It gives a focus for the 2 witnesses and the 144,000 when people are listening. Right now, people are not listening. They're distracted by this war. Their 7-year peace plan will give them pause to reflect. The Antichrist will give them a pause for help. He's going to help them to do what they've always wanted to be. Special with God. Most of them are atheists because they think they're not special with God anymore, that God's abandoned them, because they've been told by the world, you've been replaced. It's a lie. It's always been a lie. That's the devil's primary tactic, lie. If you tell a lie long enough, people will believe it. All right. I can't give you a time frame. I wish I could. But for some people, if you knew that everything was going to end in August 15th, you'd party up to August 14th and then repent. We've got work to do. We've got to warn people. We've got to tell people, God's up there and does care about us. What you're seeing is not God. What you're seeing is man's request to have God stay out of their lives. So God is. See, God gives man what he wants. Unwillingly sometimes. He'd rather them turn to God and ask for help. But they're not. So he's going to give them everything that they've asked for. They're going to get the false Messiah, the false peace. Everything's false. It won't hold up. But they'll be happy for an instant. Satan's 15 minutes of fame is approaching. But it won't last. But we should be out of here by that time. I don't think we can be here with the Antichrist, because we would, one, recognize him through the Spirit that's in us. We're the only religion where God lives in us. We would recognize the Antichrist. We'd call him out, and we could sit down and pray and say, bind him so he can't do anything. Get behind me, Satan, in whatever form you appear in. And he would have to follow. The power of God is stronger than anything the devil can come up with. So that's one of the reasons we're the restraining force. We have to be out of here. We're also not subject to wrath. So those those of you that think that we're going to go to the very end and then get raptured, you have a very sorry expression of who God is. A loving God wouldn't subject his bride, if you will, bride of Jesus, to that. The bride of Frankenstein, yeah, but not the bride of Jesus. Be prepared. Be prepared physically. Make sure that you've got everything you need to survive physically for a short time. Make sure you've got your worldly K rations, if you will, or MREs as they're called now. Make sure meals ready to eat. That's what MRE stands for. Make sure you've got the equivalent of that for this last battle that we're going to be in. This last battle is the battle for Christianity in this world. God is going to give Satan an apparent win. But it won't last. We won't be here to see it. I don't know what we can see from heaven. I really don't. I'm assuming that we can see stuff, but what's it look like, I don't know. But we can't go to heaven with these bodies. We need a new body. And I've tried, Alexa, order me a new body.
The top result is new body products, Formula 4 PG, multi-nutrient. It's $29.09, with delivery by today. You can say, buy it now, or add to list.
Cancel.
Canceling.
See, even Alexa doesn't know how to help me. We have to rely on God. Trust him that he's got a plan. We know the enemy has a plan, but God has a plan too. And he's documented a lot of the steps for us. We don't have every little step, but we have a pattern. We have a path that we're going on. And he has us all planned out. And we win in the end. God wins in the end. But Satan will have his 15 minutes of fame. It won't gain him anything. He will punish some people. There will be martyrs. But Jesus has already shown us that you can suffer a lot. You can then, in his case, resurrected on earth, but we won't be, if you're killed here on earth, you won't be resurrected on earth. You'll be going right straight to heaven. So you skip that part. But he proved that you can survive it. But why be a martyr? No, I mean, there are martyrs today. But why be a worldwide martyr if you can just get out of here with the rapture? I'm pre-trib rapture because I don't think that we're here for that final week of Daniel. However long it is. Whenever it starts. We're not supposed to be here. But we're here. We're on the ground soldiers right now, fighting a war. Fighting a war of attrition with Satan. So make sure you're physically capable of taking care of yourself. And then I talked about it in the previous video. Make sure you're spiritually capable. Because you're going to have to fight both fronts. The closer we get to the end, the harder it's going to be for both fronts. So be prepared. Till we meet in the clouds. God bless. So here's why I sit. And that's my view.